157 nations voted overwhelmingly this week to hold an international summit with the goal of settling the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and implementing the two-state solution. If this wasn't so ridiculous, sad, and ultimately a precursor to a certain biblical prophecy, we might be able to laugh. Establish a Palestinian state in Judea and Samaria, uproot and expel the 700,000 Jews living here, and expect all of that to lead to peace in the Middle East? Give me a break. We'll get into all of the details on today's episode. I'm Luke Hilton, and this is the Israel Guys. Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of anti-Israel propaganda and Jew hatred, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Thank you so much for being with us. If you're a new subscriber, let us know in the comment section below. We're at 289,000 subscribers. Can we reach 300,000 by the end of 2024? You guys could help us out. That would be amazing. So, UN General Assembly voted to hold a summit to implement the two-state solution this week. Now, number one, you do have, I am giving you the my blessing to laugh at anything that the United Nations does, because they are kind of laughable. But at the same time, there's so many countries that are members of the United Nations, and when they do vote to pass a resolution, the number of countries that vote for or against or abstain in those resolutions is a good indicator of where the world is at today, okay? So, yes, I believe the United Nations is very ignorant and don't know what they're talking about and really have hardly any power at all. But because so many countries and nations have bought into it and are members of that and vote for, against, abstain in resolutions, it gives us a good indicator, right, of where the world's at. So the UN General Assembly voted overwhelmingly this week to hold an international summit in June 2025 to promote the implementation of the two-state solution and the peaceful settlement of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. According to JNS, Jewish News Syndicate, they said, quote, the text of the conference was annexed to a 7-page resolution condemning Israeli community building beyond the so-called Green Line and into eastern Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria. It also rejects any demographic or territorial change in the Gaza Strip and urges a Palestinian state to be formed along the 1949 armistice lines. Now, I want you to know that the two goals of this resolution are an oxymoron, okay? Number one, implement the two-state solution leading to the establishment of a Palestinian state. Number two, settle once and for all the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I don't know if you understand how those two things could not be further worlds apart, right? And if you don't believe me, you can go back and watch our 4-part series here on the Israel Guys, where we went on site to show just how suicidal and disastrous a Palestinian state would be. And I'm not talking theoretics here. I'm talking, imagine a rocket launcher pointed at airplanes landing at Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. That's on our cameras on our Sovereignty series we just published a couple of months ago. Go back and watch it. Just look at the playlist. We can maybe put a link down in the description below. Watch our cameras showing an airplane landing at Ben Gurion Airport from Samaria. That's where the Palestinian state would be in a two-state solution. Quite the opposite if the two-state solution was implemented. It is implemented. It will bring about more wars, more death, more terrorism and violence, both for Israel and the rest of the world. Gaza, 2005, Israel withdrew completely, led to tens of thousands of rockets and ultimately being shot into Israel. And ultimately, the death and massacre of October 7th. Imagine that happening in Judea and Samaria, which is so much bigger than Gaza. It would evacuate 700,000 Jews instead of 8,000 from Gaza Strip. And it would be 100 or more, 1,000 times worse. By the way, does this sound like a certain prophecy? Have you guys read the Bible? Zechariah talks about all nations coming against Jerusalem. Do you think that if you read that passage, you think all the countries in the world, 190 countries or whatever it is, are going to send their armies and they're actually going to wage war against Jerusalem, right? Maybe, though, it's a little more realistic than that, and maybe it looks like a UN resolution or an EU resolution, or one of these other world bodies where no one actually abstains or votes against the resolution. Maybe that would be a fulfillment of the biblical prophecy. Maybe what we saw happening this week in the UN is just a precursor to that. Speaking of who voted for or abstained, We'll get into that. The resolution we're talking about that was passed about 3 days ago in the UN was titled Peaceful Settlement of the Question of Palestine. Please notice, no mention of Hamas, no mention of Hezbollah, no mention of Yemen, Iran, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, ISIS, or any of the other terror groups that are operating on Israel's borders or inside Israel's heartland. No mention of hostages in Gaza. No mention of the terrorism, violence, rockets being shot, invasion of Israel on October 7th. Only the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine. So, of this resolution, 157 countries voted in favor, and 8 countries voted against. Now, the countries that voted in favor don't even deserve to have their names mentioned, but the ones that voted against, I just want, if you're Israeli, if you're Jewish, please take note. These countries are your friends and allies right here. Argentina, Hungary, Israel, Federated States of Micronesia, Nauru, Palau, Papua New Guinea, and the United States. As of this week, these countries voted against Israel. They are your friends and allies. Part of the text of the resolution read, Israel, the occupying power, must comply with international law, as if they are not already, including ceasing all settlement activities and evacuating settlers from the occupied Palestinian territory. If you can iterate the actual text of an international law that states Israel is not allowed to build Jewish communities inside Judea and Samaria, I will, I don't know, but you can't iterate it. You can try. You can try all day long. You can say, yes, but international courts consider, and the United Nations views, and the EU considers, and all. You can go on and on and on. There is no international law that prohibits Israel from building Jewish communities and homes inside Judea and Samaria. So this resolution that was passed, and we'll get into more about like what they're planning to do and all of that in the second half of the show. But there was actually 2 other resolutions. There's 3 in total. By the way, this is UN General Assembly, which holds exactly 0 weight. Okay, UN General Assembly. It's like the court of public opinion. Which, as I said, when you have 157 nations voting for it, that's something to consider, to know that this is where the world's going. But as far as like actuality, as far as law, international law, rules, anything like that holds 0 weight, okay? It's like we passed an opinion voted in favor of by, 157 nations, etc. Just letting you know, right? But they passed 3 of these resolutions. Now UN Security Council resolutions they don't always, but they can hold more weight than that. But this was a General Assembly. They adopted 2 other resolutions demanding, one of the resolutions was demanding Israel's withdrawal from the Golan Heights. Give me a break. Golan Heights has already been sovereign Israeli territory for a number of years. And there was another resolution that called for providing more resources to the UN Division for Palestinian Rights. I don't know what to tell you about that one. The UN has not been providing proper resources for Palestinian rights for years. Their workers have been aiding in terrorism. Their workers have had dual jobs, one for the UN and one for Hamas. Their workers in the UN has written and provided curriculum for UN schools that glorify violence and terrorism against the Jewish people. Maybe you should focus on providing more resources that actually do good and don't promote violence and terrorism. We'll get into more details about the main resolution that we're talking about and the impending international summit that looks like it'll be happening in New York in June 2025. But first, what would you give to protect your children? For Hadar and Itai Berdichevsky, the answer was everything. On October 7th, as terror struck their peaceful kibbutz of Kfar Aza, these young parents faced an impossible choice. With their 10-month-old twins in danger, they made the ultimate sacrifice. They secured their babies in a safe room, and they gave their own lives so their children might live. Today, those orphan twins have found a new home with their aunt and uncle, Ophir and Tom Alon. Already parents to 3 young boys, the Alons open their hearts and home without hesitation. But raising 5 children under 7, including traumatized twins who lost everything, isn't just emotionally overwhelming, the financial burden is crushing. This is where you guys can come in. Right now, you can be part of something profound. Your donation of any size helps ensure these orphan children who've already lost so much can have the future their parents dreamed of. Guys, if you can, please consider clicking the link. It's going to be in the description below. The Berdichevsky twins story it's not just about loss. It's about love, courage, and the power of community coming together. You have the opportunity to stand with them. You know, some sacrifices deserve to be honored. Some families deserve our help, and all children deserve a chance to thrive. You can help support these children, the Berdichevsky orphan twins here in Israel, today. Just click the link in the description below. So I actually read more about this UN resolution on the UN press website, and I want to read you some of the text directly from that website, because it's just so interesting, right? The General Assembly today emphasized that a two-state solution remains the, quote, only path to lasting peace in the Middle East, adopting 3 resolutions to advance this goal, with speakers overwhelmingly urging a Gaza ceasefire and pressing Israel to permit food and aid deliveries into the enclave ahead of the cold winter months. Now, 2 things you need to know right here, okay? Number 1, they're urging a Gaza ceasefire. Are they urging Hamas to give up the hostages? Are they urging Hamas to surrender? Are they urging, what are they? They're just, no, Israel accept a ceasefire. I don't know if you've noticed, but Israel has been willing to accept a ceasefire as long as Hamas releases their hostages for months and months and months now. There's even a new one on the table where Israel's willing to accept some hostages. Now, I'm personally not in favor of that, because I think Israel should accept nothing less than full surrender and release of all the hostages from Gaza. But Israel has been at the table for months now, so I have no idea what is the purpose of this, except that it's anti-Israel, and they simply want Israel to lay down, let Hamas walk all over them, and say, nope, we'll stop fighting in Gaza because we're winning. You know, we're winning too much. Also, on the issue of permitting food and aid deliveries into the enclave ahead of the cold winter months, that's also ridiculous, because I've been to Gaza myself. I saw the pallets of food stacked inside of Gaza. I saw the trucks going in and out of Gaza, and according to statistics, Israel has been sending, I believe it's 3,500 calories per day per person inside of Gaza for months now. There's more than enough food inside of Gaza, but I also saw a video today, a video that allegedly showed 2 Arab men, Palestinian men inside Gaza, who tried to actually go take some of that aid because it's confiscated by Hamas, tried to get some of that aid to feed their own people. And what happened? Hamas caught them, beat, and tortured them. Okay, so that's what's happening. Israel sends 3,500 calories per person per day inside to Gaza. Hamas confiscates it, they hold it, and they don't let it go to their people. And if anybody tries to take that aid and food, they get beaten, tortured, and sometimes killed. Okay, bottom line. Assembly President Philemon Yang from Cameroon stressed, quote, peace and security will never be achieved through force or occupation, meaning Israel, obviously, and that Israel has only perpetuated cycles of violence and deepened despair. And then he went on to say, it's been over a year of hostilities that have caused thousands of death and widespread destruction. Now is the time to, quote, bury the hatchet once and for all, aka Israel stop defeating terrorists, Israel stop eliminating Hamas, Israel stop eradicating Hezbollah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Israel stop defending yourself, Israel lay down and let your enemies kill and wipe you off the face of the map. He also stressed calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and the unconditional release of all hostages. Bottom line, guys, on Tuesday of this week, today's Friday, December 6th, the General Assembly in the UN voted by 157-8 margin, with 7 abstentions, in favor of holding a conference in June 2025 aimed at adopting, quote, an action-oriented outcome document to urgently chart an irreversible pathway towards the peaceful settlement of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the implementation of a Palestinian state. Now, I'm going to tell you guys a secret, because this has not been announced anywhere else yet, and you guys are hearing it first, because just last night, and we could not have tried to do this if we tried, we confirmed our venue in Dallas, Texas, June 9th through 11th for the 2nd Annual Israel Summit, whose aim and goal is going to be 100% Israeli sovereignty for the Israeli people in the entirety of the land of Israel. Now, if that's not a coincidence, if that's not providence, God's hand at work, we don't believe in coincidences, I don't know what is, because the world is going to be holding a summit in New York in June 2025 with the goal of implementing the 2-state solution. And with the idea that that will create peace in the Middle East, we're holding the second annual Israel Summit, which was incredibly successful this year in Nashville, Tennessee, by the way, with over 1,500 people in attendance. We're going to be holding that second summit in Dallas, Texas, at the same time, June 9th through 11th, to counteract that, because we know that the only path for peace in the Middle East is for Israel to be sovereign in the entirety of the land of Israel. Now, I'm telling you guys this as a secret. You're the first ones to know, because you can actually go to our website right now. You can't register, but you can hold your spot. You can reserve your spot, and I will put the link for that in the description below. You guys should go over there right now. This is your first chance to make a statement to stand with Israel and against this UN resolution, against the summit that's going to be held in New York in June. You can reserve your spot right now for the second annual Israel Summit, June 9th through 11th in Dallas, Texas. Guys, check out that link in the description below. One last bit of news before we wrap up today's episode, and that is there's been a bill introduced in the House and the Senate to prohibit the United States federal government from using the term West Bank on all government documents, and instead use the term Judea and Samaria. I think it's wild that there's actually bills in the Senate and the Congress right now to mandate that the U.S. should use the accurate terminology Judea and Samaria on all their federal documents. But I'll just read you two quotes. One is from Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, who introduced the bill into the Senate. He said, quote, "The Jewish people's legal and historic rights to Judea and Samaria goes back thousands of years. The U.S. should stop using the politically charged term West Bank to refer to the biblical heartland of Israel." It's incredible that a senator in the U.S. Congress actually has such clarity of vision in today's world. Claudia Tenney, or Congresswoman Tenney from New York, who introduced the bill in the House of Representatives, said, quote, "The Israeli people have an undeniable and indisputable historical and legal claim over Judea and Samaria. And at this critical moment in history, the United States must reaffirm this. This bill reaffirms Israel's rightful claim to its territory. I remain committed to defending the integrity of the Jewish state and fully supporting Israeli sovereignty over Judea and Samaria." In conclusion, guys, it's just crazy to me that so much of the world can be blind and ignorant, with the United Nations first and major first world countries pushing for the two-state solution, stressing that the two-state solution is the path to resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This conference in June is slated to be held in New York. It's supposed to be co-sponsored or co-chaired by France and Saudi Arabia. These are major first world countries, right? And when we know, in fact, the truth is opposite. If a Palestinian state is established in Judea and Samaria, will lead to a repeat of Gaza. That's 100 times bigger and worse. At the same time, though, however, it appears encouraging to know that there are sane, godly, moral people who are willing to stand up for what is right and see the world with clear vision, recognizing that the land of Israel belongs to the people of Israel unconditionally. Guys, please consider donating to support the Berdichevsky twins here in Israel, orphaned after October 7th. Orphan twins here in Israel, very good cause that you guys can be a part of. Just click that link in the description below. As always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and reconnect with the truth of what's happening here in Israel. We'll be back very soon here at the Israel Guys.